the session. I want to say welcome to all our guests who've joined us online. We're very privileged to have you with us today and to join our conversation. I want to say the retail sector is a very old sector historically. I've did a little bit of AI search, and it was quite interesting to know that retail already started in the antiquities. Selling and buying emerged in Asian Minor, which is actually Turkey. And then it moved through the centuries and have evolved at a rapid pace, especially in the last 20, 30 years. If you think service counters was an innovation in the 17th to 19th century, department stores arrived in the 1800s, mid-1800s to the 1900s, shopping malls in the 1950s. And e-commerce hit us with a big bang in the 1990s, and social media opportunities in 2007. And today, it's AI and all the new tech that we have to deal with. And not just the tech, but if you think of the motorbikes doing deliveries all the time, it's actually becoming a little bit of a buzz in our environment. If you listen out in the city, you hear all these little bikes maneuvering around and doing deliveries. So retail is a long profession. It's been here for a long time. But I think now in 1925, we are living through one of the most transformative periods of the history of retail. Things are happening very rapidly. There's a convergence of digital technologies, shifting customer expectations, automation, and new models has forced retailers to rethink not just how they operate, but who they need on their teams to thrive in the future. So it's not just getting ready for today, it's getting ready for the future that's hitting us. Transformation has placed HR in the very heart of this strategy of business evolution. It's not just anymore about managing people. It's really about building a future workforce, embedding digital mindsets, and enabling an organization to be agile in its operation, both in bricks and mortar. I don't see that going away very soon, although it's changing, and I'm sure the retailers today can tell us all about that. But the e-commerce ecosystem has really taken over retail. If I think for me personally, where do I go and do shopping? Clothes, groceries, it really is online and through e-commerce. And I think that's where the whole customer expectation is changing. And how is HR getting us ready for the new future? So with our HR leaders today, we are going to explore quite a couple of things. How do we identify and develop digital first talent in our businesses? How do we integrate new technologies into HR processes? How do we create agile and inclusive learning cultures? Because I think in retail, it's quite hard to create a culture because people are dispersed into different environments and shopping centers and all over. How do you create a culture where people feel I belong? How do I navigate hybrid workforce dynamics? Things like shift work, etc. And how do I redefine employee experiences for frontline and corporate staff alike? And today we've got a very esteemed panel here, consisting of retailers and HR retailers who've been in the business not only for a number of years, but some of our guest speakers have been in retail for a very long time, stretching over decades. And the retailers today are going to offer us actionable insights, practical things that they are doing in their worlds, real world strategies that addresses both talent challenges and future workforce needs in a digital driven landscape. So with no further ado, it's my privilege to introduce our panelists. And I'm going to start with Rishi. If Rishi Ramgulan is the CEO, CE of People for PEP, And Rishi, I would like you just to introduce yourself in a couple of words, please.
Thank you, Karen. Happy to be part of the panel. Like you said, my name is Rishi. I've been in retail since the Backstreet Boys were making music. So yeah, I know a thing or two, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today so we can learn from one another.
I think we mustn't underestimate your experience, Rishi. I see you've been more than 18 years in retail and a very special passion about purpose-driven organizations. So we are really looking forward to you sharing with us today.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Our next panelist is from Smollen. She's the head of human resources. Lindiwe, I think you have joined us. I hope you are online. I'm going to move on. I saw her quickly pop up and then out, so I'm not sure. We'll give her a couple of minutes and I'll introduce her later on as soon as she joins. I'm then going to move on to our retailer, senior HR manager, senior manager and talent in performance, Suri Pakiri. Surashni is the full name, and she is from Walmart. Would you like to introduce yourself in a couple of words, Suri?
Thanks, Karen. So, yeah, officially it's Suri for the short form, Suryashni for the 10 letters. Usually it does get a little bit panel beated, so I go with the short version. So been in retail for quite a long period. Rishi, not as long as you, but we do share background. So Edcon years, that was my first employer. So leveraging of all of the good old days and looking forward to the session. But definitely it's been a journey through the retail space, HR evolution as well. And yeah, so it's Massmart powered by Walmart. And we've also been through a journey within the South African and African context. So definitely an exciting conversation.
We really are looking forward to hearing from you, Suri. Suri warned me
Thanks,
that
Karen.
if I say Suri, my iPhone may actually bring up some noise. So I'm going to try and avoid doing that. But I think also I'm really interested linking with Rishi. You believe in the concept of ikigai, which is the Japanese concept around building life purpose. Very curious about that. And also really your experience in retail and developing HR strategies for retail. I've just had a note from our organizer that Lindiwe is having some internet problems, so we'll accommodate her as soon as she can join us. Our very next esteemed candidate is from ShopRite Checkers, talking about bikes driving around. You really see them everywhere, Wasifa. So Wasifa Khan, and she is the regional HR manager of Checkers Group companies. Welcome, and if you could introduce yourself, please, Wasifa.
So thank you so much, Karen. Good day, everybody, again. So I'm Wasifa. Joined the retail space a while ago, but into a corporate structure, joined since like 2018. So really climbed up the ladder there and been with them since. It's a long journey, everyday learning, and it's an experience. Looking forward to learn more and gain so many more insights from the various panelists on today.
I'm very curious around your work that you've done in employee satisfaction and tying in with how do we create employee experiences. So can't wait to hear from you, Wasifa, and welcome. And then last is Nayatela Shivalani. Welcome, Nayatela. Nayatela is from Richmond. She's the HR operations executive. And if you could like to introduce yourself in a couple of words, please. And then I'm going to lead into the first question with you.
Thank you, Karen. I am very excited to be with you today. I am fairly new into the retail space with just under 5 years in this environment. With Richmond Luxury Goods, also known as Richmond, but I am based in the Africa region. So really my whole purpose of HR is really just placing back the human factor into HR and redefining what that should look like for our employees, because I really feel like that has been distorted throughout the years. I'm really, really excited to be in this panel and to unpack today's topic with you. Thank you.
So Niatela, with no further ado and with that focus of a human touch, our first question to the panel is, how has the rapid digital transformation in retail and e-commerce redefined the skills and competencies HR is prioritizing for today? And I think what you're saying with that human touch, I think we can lose it even more with all the commerce hitting us and all the AI.
Yeah.
And how do we keep that? But I'm very curious to hear what your perspective is on how we redefine skills in this environment.
I think we can all agree that really the essence of retail lies in customer centricity, because customers are the one that bring us business. But, throughout the years, because of the constant, evolving of the fourth industrial revolution, we have really seen a shift of what customer centricity is or how it looks like. We've really shifted from our traditional ways of attracting talent, such as, for example, in our boutiques, attracting talent from employees who are really good in persuasion or just comfortable in those face-to-face interactions. And we are now moving to a space or an environment where our customers really are relying on those online purchases or online ways of making purchases. And therefore, customer centricity has really shifted. And in terms of the skills and qualities or competencies that we are looking for, we are looking more onto, employees or staff members that are really high in terms of, being qualified in IT as well as IT tools. We're looking forward to, competencies in digital marketing, but also in our customer support structures, customer supports, which are really, inclined in terms of operations or internal operations that our organizations make use in order to make sure that we really deliver in terms of your online or e-commerce purchases for our customers.
So very interesting, that shift. And the shift in customer service obviously have a lot of repercussions on your staff that you employ. A question from my side, are you able to attract these type of new skills that you are looking for? And how do you go about that, Niatela?
Well, it comes at a very small scale, I must say. But what I have really learned to make use of or to value is really upskilling the already staff members that we have, placing value in them, obviously together working with the learning and development departments that we have in order to make sure that, within we are already set out for that online customer centricity that we are looking for. And what I've also seen is that where staff members really feel valued in terms of seeing that the employer really does put that effort into them, there has really been low turnover rates, number one, but also we know that where there is job satisfaction, there is high performance as well. So I think, over and above having to go outside and really looking for that talent, it is really key for us to start internally and really fix those structures and the skills or qualities that we already have in terms of elevating them to meet the demand, of this e-commerce world that we have shifted into.
And do you find that your staff members find that transition difficult, and how do you prepare them for that transition?
I think we do have a bit of both. We do have a bit of those who are really reluctant into change. Change is not easy, and not everyone really accepts change the very same way. And some of the ways that we are making sure to walk this journey with our employees is, first of all, really communicating this change management to them in due time, and making sure that they are part of these changes that we are going through. And also, obviously, training them and upskilling them, just as I say, to make sure that they are comfortable as well with this change in terms of these digital tools that we may be bringing into place before actually, transitioning into the actual, digital tools usage. But it's very important to really walk the journey with the employees, communicating this change, and also making sure that we train them in terms of the changes that are to come and to follow.
I see, Suri, you've got your hands up. If I can ask Suri to respond, and then Wasifa.
Thanks, Karan. So I think fully aligned with Nyatela's response, and to build up on that, you'll notice through Nyatela's response, the change is constant, right? And that's the irony. So something that has shifted in HR over decades is we used to have a very frameworked kind of approach in terms of how we're managing workforce, but over the years that approach has shifted, because you have to continuously deep dive into understanding your environment, into understanding strategy, into understanding different landscapes, because brick and mortar is now embedded into the e-commerce journey. So I think Nyatela hit the nail on the head with the constant approach of how you're assessing, your workforce, and how you continuously having to build that, or to review, ways of working or approaches in investing in talent. So it's a never-ending journey, and I think that summarizes in terms of how do we prioritize talent, but also how do you, as an HR custodian or ambassador, also then have the strategic act and look at strategy as well. How do you impact strategy through that? So it's a deeper conversation, Karan, in terms of continuous market analysis and how you're building that workforce along that journey.
And I like what
Karan.
you're saying, Surai, because I think HR is going to have to probably also change their focus to the external environment so that they can influence the internal environment. And I think that
100%.
means changing our own jobs and how we view those jobs, so that it's not the traditional HR, but it really is, am I ready? Am I part of the strategy? Do I see what's happening outside there? So very key. Nyatela, I like the human touch that you're bringing in. It's not necessarily to say that if digital is coming into our organization and it's evolving, that we just leave old staff members behind. That upskilling process, I think, is quite key in driving a culture where people feel they belong. Wasifa, your hand is up. Comments from your side?
Yeah, I'd just like to add. So being a regional HR manager, I'm actually in the store every day, all day, and I'm engaging with the staff on the daily basis, right? And it's quite difficult to transform or bring along the new HR processes and what you want to get through, because everybody has a different skill set. They understand knowledge differently. And, you have to keep up with their pace as well, teach them slowly via the training, via e-learning. Not everybody can understand that because of their background, their social status, their home language. So I deal mostly with the assistant managers in the store, and monitoring and looking at how that evolves. So it's a slow journey, but it's heading in the right way.
Wasifa, first of all, can I ask you to switch your camera on, please? But just to emphasize, and I think if you are at the store face, you really understand probably how difficult it is for people just to go on a learning program or a development process. Because how do you get them out of the store? Where do they have access to the information? So I think the development side is also quite key in how do you evolve people along this process. So quite key comments there. Rishi, I want to address the next question with you. What do you see as the most critical roles emerging in retail due to digitalization? So we've spoken about, and Yatela mentioned quite customer service is quite key. So I think that element is quite key and roles are quite key. But on the digital side, what do you see as the new emerging roles? And how do we as HR prepare talent pipelines for them? What are you doing in your business to accommodate this?
Thanks, Karen. If you talk to our leadership teams, they'll tell you not enough. There's always an opportunity for us to do more. I think some of the most critical roles, and if I had to give advice to anybody that says to me, listen, what field of study should I embark on in terms of making sure that my career is successful and always needed, will definitely be, encouraging individuals to study in e-commerce. E-commerce managers, content managers, automation specialists, they're like hen's teeth. We can hardly find them. And when you do find them, the power is actually very much with the actual candidate because of the many opportunities they have knocking on their door. So it's opened up a whole avenue of talent, it's opened up a whole new field potential students could get into. It's very difficult for us to find commerce managers and automation specialists, solutions architects, data scientists, and solution architects specifically. So those are very highly specialized roles. And we were not recruiting for roles like that 10 or 15 years ago. So it's a completely new field that's opened up, and it warrants firstly us as an HR team to make sure we understand those roles, make sure that we know what we're looking for, and then we make sure that we look for that within the respective market. Some of the opportunities that have worked for us, and we're not perfect at it, but that have worked, is that we've established relationships with quite a few of the universities to establish graduate programs and sponsorships of some of their classrooms. So when you've got postgraduate students, or you've got undergrad students even, and you say, listen, can we partner with you to fund some of your studies? When you do complete your studies, would you commit at least 2 years for work for us, etc., etc. The thing is, another factor that has worked for us is our employee, if I could call it employer branding. Retail is not always the sexiest industry that if you're graduating as a data scientist and you can say, I want to join retail. I mean, you're competing with tech companies, you're competing with financial institutions, very glamorous organizations out there. So you've got to make sure that we have a value proposition that we put in front of these potential employees to make sure they understand the value of joining us and the fact that we actually can be quite innovative within the retail environment.
And can I ask you a question, Rishi? If you approach these universities, do they focus the studies towards retail, or is it still the generic studies that you then, once they join you, supplement?
So it's very generic at tertiary level. There isn't a retail-focused program out there right now. There is a lot of bridging that we've got to do when the graduates join the organization to help them understand the basic concept of retailing. But they get it very quickly. I mean, we're not rocket scientists. We basically sell clothes and services, and they catch on quite quickly.
I'm glad to hear it's not rocket science, but just in finding those talents, how do you, besides the universities, are there any other strategies that you use to get sources of these key critical roles that you require? Yeah,
I wish there was a magic formula for this, but your traditional sourcing via LinkedIn and creating networks in that sense work. We have an internal referral policy, which seems to have worked quite well. So if we recruit, 3 or 4 great data scientists or e-commerce specialists, we say, can you tell us who would in your network we can reach out to? And if that works well and we end up placing the candidate, then we pay a referral bonus to the internal candidate. We found that our rate of success of placements works best with internal referrals and networks as opposed to cold calling. And in a very rare occasion, there's specialist recruitment firms that we partner with who specialize in IT and the special e-commerce skills. But we try to stay away from recruitment firms, if I'm honest, and manage that internally.
I would like to hear from Nyatela. What do you do in Richmond to attract the right talent, and what type of critical roles are you looking for? Is it similar to Rishi, different?
I'd say it's quite similar. Also, putting into factor the type of customers that we have. It is very crucial to ensure that really our staff members are equipped with the necessary education as well as the skills to ensure that they are at a level where they can communicate and they can sell to our, prestige customers in a way that really speaks to the goals that Richmond is looking into really achieving.
Okay, Wasifa, from your recruitment practices, and how do you retain talent?
So much of it happens internally as well, upskilling and, they early on identify who are the top candidates, mostly for assistant managers, because that's something that I do. There's various platforms. So our recruitment consultants, will profile and screen, and then we will do the face-to-face interviews and so on, but mostly internal, because we'd like to show them there is growth within the company from the bottom up.
Thank you. And Suri, do we hear from your side, your talent strategies around getting the critical roles, and what do you at Walmart see as some of the critical roles? Massmart?
Thanks, Karen. So I think aligned with the team, a lot of focus in terms of, to Rishi's point, digital marketing, the data scientists, a lot of focus on social media as well. And you'll notice with that comes the generational pool, which means that you're offering in terms of EVP, your employee value proposition needs to shift. So a lot of focus on that. But again, to the point of internal pipelining, I think it's important that business has regular talent reviewing, etc., so that you're aware of, what does the internal talent pool look like, aligned to what are you trying to close the gap on from a skills and competence perspective, and then make the necessary, plans from there. So within our space, that's a regular process, quarterly reviewing on that, and also leader-led in terms of driving that focus. But the HR space is a huge partner in terms of making sure, those core elements are continuously reviewed, etc., and primary focus. I mean, there's a lot of changes that occur, but I think the core roles that are trending at this point in time are mostly surrounded around the omnichannel environment. And with us specifically, it's the omnichannel, because like we alluded to earlier on, it's the brick and mortar. Customers still want to walk into your store. What experience are you creating for that customer? And then again, you also have to have that same experience on the online or e-commerce platform. So a lot of, I think, competition as well. I think Wasifa, she would probably experience this a little bit more between the retailers and the FMCG perspective as well. So that being said, it's important that you have, an employee brand, and you have a carrot available to kind of then also, entice that talent mobility and movement across in terms of scale. So it's a journey, and it's not a one size fits all approach, depending on what environment you're having to support.
So the EVP is quite I see on the radar of all of our guest speakers here. and the customer experience, EVP, and creating an employee value experience to get your EVP out there. How do you go about creating the right experiences for your staff members? I know the focus in retail is on the customer, but internally, what strategies do you use to create an internal EVP and branding for the organization? If I can maybe jump to Rishi for feedback from yourself on that question.
Thank you, Karen. I think we've just hot off the press created our what we call not an EVP but a DVP, because we refer to our internal teams as Dynamo. So a Dynamo value proposition. Are you wondering why? We believe that our dynamos are the dynamos that create energy. So our people create energy for customers, create energy for the business, and that's why we call them dynamos. Our secret sauce in our value proposition is undoubtedly our culture. It's what sets us apart from other retailers. It's almost our trump card that enables us to attract talent within the retail sector. So we quite we have a good reputation for having a great workforce culture. It's been that way for a significant number of years, and that's our secret sauce. That's what makes us different. And there's various other pillars to our value proposition, like ensure that we have a sustainability piece, that we have a piece that talks about our market leading benefits and rewards, and just the fact that we have a strong heritage of an organization that's 60 years old, but also are reinventing ourselves and positioning ourselves for the future. So our value proposition has various pillars, but if you have to ask me to pick one, our secret sauce that makes us different is our culture.
And that culture that you created, how did that evolve in the process? And have you seen that change in culture attract that talent that you are looking for?
So our culture has been in place probably for the last 30 years, surprisingly. I mean, there's case studies on it. We call it Sikula Kunye, which is growing together. And it's something that's felt by every single dynamo throughout the entire business. The core roots and the values and the systems of Sikula Kunye has not changed. We've not deviated from that. How we manage a multi-generational workforce, we have different generations of leaders, and unpacking what that culture means through the different environment, we've evolved and we've tweaked that. But the core foundation principles of respect and dignity, and our core values of honesty, passion, and resourcefulness has not changed, and has stood the test of time.
Right, let's hear from Niyatela, your culture and how you create your own EVP within your organization, or DVP.
I think, just going back to when I was saying that we are really trying to put the human factor back into everything. Part of what we do in our culture is as placing humility back. From the person with the lowest job grade to the one with the highest job grade. In terms of our culture, there is really no difference that you can see or tell when we're all together, all sitting together, from the CEO having lunch with us. We actually, in our offices in Bryanston, just to give you an idea, we actually have an open plan, an open floor. Everyone sits there together, and this just promotes more of togetherness, of oneness, of humility, and us understanding that as much as we have, these different tasks and responsibilities, we are still one thing and working towards a common goal.
That sounds amazing, Niyatela. Because I would have imagined in the retail sector, there's quite a distinction between the levels of work within the organization. Do you experience a similar thing with SIFA, that distinction, or is there a culture of togetherness or sharing?
No, 100%. I think as, in Checkers, everything is all about, working together to achieve that shared goal of, no customer leaves the store unhappy. So that is the motto they follow, and everyone brings their piece to the table. So we create that environment where, everyone is able to achieve what they want, grow with the company, and we make them feel valued and heard. We listen to them. Like I said, I'm very much involved with the staff. I have everyone has an open door policy. So, if anyone has any issues, grievances, so on, the normal HR processes. And as long as we make them feel valued and heard, that is something that, we've seen, and it works for the Checkers space. Yeah.
Hey, Sheree, from your side, in terms of the culture, what culture are you driving? What has worked for you? Has it attracted the talent that you require?
I think in our space, Karen, the people are the heart of the business. So everything that we do in terms of building that associates or employee experience is surrounded around that. And it goes back to, the basic elements with the human approach of just greeting. So it starts with the simple most, how do you create or how do you make an employee's day? So simple things like greeting, to the point where levels shouldn't be a factor in that, because we all are kind of aligned and bound by the same deliverable in terms of, how do you practice the values of the company? And in our space, respect, striving for excellence, customer service, people are the heart of the business. So those 4 elements is what we utilize and what we leverage on, but everybody is part of that journey. So, the internal joke is everybody needs to make sure that they can sell that can of baked beans. So, the baked beans never goes out of fashion in the space, but the true source, I think, in that is the putting the associate at the forefront of all that we invest in. So I think if we tap into that, we tap into that resource, and that's the unlocker for us in terms of making sure we deliver on strategy and the big picture.
So I'm picking up quite a couple of keywords here: the human touch, the customer experience, the culture that you build. Very much around that is what it seems like the new strategy is looking towards, and helps attract the talent that you want. I want to throw it back to your HR operations itself. How have you used digital to enhance your own service to your customers, being the employees, but also your business partners, your executive team, in shaping your own HR journey? If I can maybe start with Suri, how have you used technology in your own HR environment to make decisions?
So I think it's all about efficiency, Karen. And we all know that the evolution of retail has shifted, like we discussed earlier on. With that, the evolution of HR has also shifted. So I think the transactional approach of the role of HR is simmered down. We're trying to look at, more strategic type of partnering within our space, primarily around the talent planning and performance management. My role as support center or centers of excellence is, how do I make the journey of the HR or business partner much more easier to support the frontline associate or employee? And we've actually embedded into our talent management and management the use or the kind of co-creation and collaboration through processes of AI. So a simple approach would be, when we're having a talent review or career conversation, how does the people partner support the leader to drive more effective and efficient conversations, so that the development journey of that associate is accelerated, as an example. So we have had embedded AI into the process since last year. It's an early journey, but I think we've leaps and bounds in terms of bringing that associate on the journey as well to the user experience. So I think it's been twofold. The one is, how do you support your HR community to create efficiencies? And how do you understand what are the burning points and how to kind of expedite, key focuses for them to time to deliver. So that's important for us. And I think that's what we drive from a center of excellence perspective. And I think another thing, Karen, to look at is the HR community or the HR business partners. They fundamentally own that role in terms of translating it to associate experience and leadership focus as well. So it's important in terms of co-creation and collaboration that they are the focus in terms of driving enablement for that. So we've started the journey of AI into those streams, working well so far. Also embedded it into the employees' development planning, so that's working very well for us right now.
So being through that journey of starting fairly recently, did you experience people took to the AI, or did they sort of push back, or how did you find the adoption rate?
I think in terms of how we initiated the journeys, we looked to ask the employee, what are they wanting to experience in terms of talent development and also performance management. So we had several platforms. We used focus groups. We used surveys to solicit that information, and we built it. So it's been a fairly new initiation, but I think groundwork and the planning started over 3 to 5 years ago. So I think understanding what your needs are from the employee, understanding what your people partner or your HR field or custodians require is important. But to your question, our employees are actually, the hit rate on it was already over 80% within the first 3 months that we launched. So we held a lot of master classes, etc., so that we climatized them. We took them on the journey. But remember, again, I think Nyatala mentioned it earlier on, is sometimes there's a reluctancy to want to change the way we've done, specifically around retail, because it's a little bit more, aligned to the brick and mortar. But I think if you open up that platform for employees to understand what's the bottom line return in terms of how it's going to benefit their learning journey or career pathways, that's how you actually get it, a little bit more embedded into the return on investment for those things. So it's working well for us. And we host sessions every quarter. So like a talent type of a forum and talent day session. So your associates can join and kind of leverage off all of the new tech enablement that we're busy with at the moment.
It sounds amazing, the work that you do, and it sounds like if you've been busy with it for 3 years, there is a time span in starting this and how you roll it out and how you get your people to join the learning journey. Nyatela, from your side, how have you used technology to drive your HR business and to make that more productive and combine it with the human touch that you talk about?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have a mix of both the technical side as well as, the interpersonal side. And on the technical side, this is something that, I wouldn't say it's a strength when it comes to HR. So what we have done is that we have been working in collaboration with your more tech departments, from their side, in order for them to understand, the demands or the needs that we have, and aligning with them on how they can go about to making the tech side work for us. So it's really been a journey of collaboration with the tech departments and your more e-commerce departments to make sure that they are able to deliver on what we need as HR and the technologies as well as the digital tools that will be required from us as HR in order to go about in making sure that we do handle and we do get through the business objectives where talent is involved in creating the talent pools that we do require.
And where have most of your tech involvement focused on? Which areas? Is it in recruitment, or which spaces have you used the tech?
It's mainly in recruitment. I think we can all, attest to the fact that retail is a really fast growing and fast paced environment. So people in retail also move around a lot. So you need to make sure that you are really in a position where when there is recruitment, where you are looking for a position to be filled, you act as soon as possible. And I think technology has really equipped us in that way and has really been a really great help to make sure that in terms of recruitment and the different recruitment phases that we have, we act promptly. And we are able to attain the type of talent that we require before, they're snatched, before they are taken by the next competitor, before they run out of patience and feel like, the administration of HR is taking forever, and then they start looking elsewhere. So it has been a great aid in terms of the recruitment side.
Thank you, Nyathela. And I think probably because of that fast-moving pace, one of the target areas is probably also the admin around HR, because that can be, I'm assuming, can be changed very quickly with a tech component. Have you embarked on focusing on the administrative side as well, or is it more on the recruitment side?
On the administrative side as well, that's where I started actually, from your recruitment or selection to, getting those interviews scheduled, having those interviews. So really the day by day, as well as the different stages in terms of, from onboarding all to the way to when we actually have that person starting, and to offboarding as well, And I also believe that it is very important for each and every HR personnel to really have those administrative qualities as well as skills, because, they are really the essence and the basics of HR. It is admin through and through, and there's no way in which you can really bypass that.
Yeah, no, I think every organization moans about the administrative side of human resources. I saw a lot of nodding heads, and Rishi, you've got your hand up if you would like to comment.
Yeah. Just to share on your point of administration, just to share some context with our business. We've got a workforce in excess of 20,000 dynamos, and we have 2,600 stores scattered throughout the country, dealing with so it's not having one central corporate environment where you can center your digital training to. There's lots of barriers to making this work. But what we found to be quite effective on dealing with the administrative queries is the chatbots, the WhatsApp chatbots that we've introduced within, let's call it our payroll or administrative department. It's our first line of defense. So if any of the dynamos in the field, and you've got to understand also context, some of our dynamos are weekly paid and the others are monthly paid. So your first line of defense dealing with basic pay queries, leave queries, basic policy queries regarding leave, etc. We found our chatbots as a first line of defense to be very effective. And then we supplement that with anything else that needs to be, if you need the human intervention, we have teams that go through that the WhatsApp, the chatbots can't get through, that have been escalated. So that's worked quite reasonably well for us. But understanding the challenges that we have in having such a big business. I mean, if you look at Wi-Fi capabilities, and access to data in remote areas, outside Limpopo, Mpumalanga, etc. It's a lot more challenging for our dynamos to use that. But this seems to be the most effective.
And moving on to how does it link with your EVP? Because I'm sure, or your DVP.
Yes.
Even in rural areas, a lot of people do have cell phones, or hopefully smart cell phones. Do you use tools or extend it to that environment?
Well, we believe if you don't have a smart cell phone, you'll buy one from us, because 7 out of 10 cell phones in South Africa are bought at Pepco. Yeah, we do use. So what we are moving towards now is digitized learning, where we're going to do some research and start investing in that space. So that's how we take learning to the dynamos on their devices, in their hands, wherever they are, whenever they are, and they can. So it's bite-sized training via on mobile, with relevant content that's, like I said, is multi-generational. And there's lots of development going in for that. We plan on also introducing the elements of gamification. So, winning streaks, badges, that kind of thing that our dynamos will relate to. So to encourage learning from that perspective.
And I suppose, Richie, it's also catering for a new generation of the workforce, the multiple generations. And I think the workforce is becoming the Gen Zs or the Alphas are starting to join our workforce. And I would suppose that speaks to them.
Absolutely. So we're making sure that with fresh eyes, we're looking at our learning content all over again. And also our communication content to make sure it's relevant and it talks to dynamos at different generations. The true roots and essence of what we want to change from our leadership philosophies won't be different. It's perhaps how we deliver it is what will change.
Right. Washifa, being on the storefront, how do you use your technology and how do you really make it part of your EVP there?
So much like what Rishi has said, there is various departments at head office has already implemented the people support system for your basic leave queries and any query that an employee has, and then also introduced the learning and development side on their smartphone, on the app that everyone can quickly learn something while they're traveling to work and so on. But with that challenge comes that everyone doesn't have a smartphone, even though we do sell it as well. But then it comes around with the data and the Wi-Fi and so on and the network and stuff, that can they really afford that? Because there's so much of responsibilities one has from the bottom up. So yeah, that works, and we encourage that from the regional HR people partners. We have to monitor the learning and development, make sure we're using the AI, the different platforms, the Tableau platforms, and so on. So we constantly track and make sure all our staff are informed and learned. They're learning on the go every day, all day. We have a time to train schedule. So there's a lot of platforms that we use already to enhance that development and they time with us as well.
Thank you. I want to ask you a different question. Tell us a little bit about how you use the hybrid working environments. What are the key challenges you face there in managing hybrid and remote workforces in retail headquarters and e-commerce teams? Would you like to comment on that, and how do you address it within your environment?
So unfortunately, the people at the stores, right? So we form part of store support. We don't have hybrid or remote working. That only happens at probably head office. Unfortunately, we are there 24/7.
Ground from that. Suri, from your side, do you have hybrid working environments?
Yes, we do, Karen. So I think flexibility is important, right? And it links back to how are we being agile and how are we accommodating that in associates being at the forefront of the business. So I think we've accommodated it, also linked to where we see the skill and competence throughout, the country. That's important. We based in Johannesburg, and we have, hubs around the country. But at times you need to be flexible to go to the talent. So you need to scan your market, understand where those scarce skills and how do you support with that. So that being said, we've had to climatize and accommodate that. And I think COVID unlocked that. I know the first person to mention the C word. It hasn't been a buzzword for a couple of months now, but sorry guys, I mentioned the C word. So I think since 2020, we've had to be flexible and we had to think of different ways of maneuvering around that. So that kicked it off, and I think that spiked it. But it's important to understand what is your talent investment, what are the behavioral type of approaches as well that you need to be flexible around to accommodate that. And I think we've been very open-minded when it comes to that. So we do have a hybrid policy as well. So flexibility in terms of how you're accommodating that is important in terms of which function. So we've also have many segments around Africa as well. So that being said, we would have to automatically adjust and ensure that our associates are accommodated. So, for example, there's just a project that kicked off recently where also investment in looking at Cape Town, and that has been in the media as well. So focuses on that. And again, how we understanding, how we deep diving into talent markets and how we being flexible to accommodate that within business as well is very important. So I think that's a journey and that's a continuous approach that most employers will have to take. But being a top employer, I think that comes first at hand as well in terms of how we're meeting the associates to accommodate, that elements.
Yeah, and I think the C word is a dangerous word, but I think that is really where hybrid really came to its own, in its own space. And I think a lot of organizations are struggling whether they bring people in or are accommodating around hybrid. And most probably the online e-commerce type people who work for you are more the people who would like to work remotely and manage their own hours and so forth. What are some of the challenges you experienced in that, Suri, in just managing that workforce? And how
And I think, Karan, is important because generation also plays in that. And you'll notice, I think Rishi had mentioned it, in terms of how you create the diversity amongst that is important because you have different, type of requirements or preferences, I would say, in terms of how you're managing that. So, Gen Z's flexibility is important. Again, permanent positions may not be something that they actually look at. They like to move around frequently, specifically around those tech enablement skill. So that is one that regularly occurs. But I think trust is an important foundational element in terms of everything that you do as a responsible employer. So we've actually built in the hybrid policy. What that being is, I think expectations of delivery and allowing the associate to be flexible to exercise that is important. But trust as an employer is also important in terms of what mechanisms do we have to allow associates to be flexible within their spaces or remote working. But then also, balancing that with high demand season. So retail, you would know, the last quarter of the year, we would go into the golden quarter and we would then say, core function, we requirement to be in the office within X number of days. So it's a give and take scenario. And I think it's also based on your employees understanding what the core priorities are and strategy of the organization to be able to support that. So trust is a foundational element, but taking your employees on the journey as a business is also very important so that, you have that balance. And I think we're good with that, and we've embedded that across the country. So that is something that works really well for us.
Yeah, and I think even if I talk about the Regenesis environment, it is a trust issue, absolutely, and it's the culture that can accommodate it, I think. And it takes not just the people who must change their mindset that are remote working, but it takes the people who are actually in the office's mindset to change around that as well. And are we building the skill to communicate and work online is probably some of the things that you find quite key in creating the right culture.
Absolutely. And I think digital enablement, and I think Nyatala mentioned it, I think HR was also forced to move into the tech space very quickly when Zoom was trending at a point in time. I think Teams came a little bit later to that, but I know in our space, we were Zooming continuously. And I think Washifa would have felt it, I think, as well, because we would have, for a point in time, we could only have engagement with our frontline associates and store teams through virtual components. So I think it was forced. And we could say that maybe the tech industry had a secret agenda available with that, but I think we all had to climatize. So yeah, I think that's an important one to understand. I think, Karan, in terms of how do we leverage of that, but also what streams do we then keep at the forefront to create efficiencies? Anything to make any transactional elements easier, I think, is what we all would want. So anything to kind of cut that time to deliver and to accelerate it is what we'll leverage on. So tech is a huge enablement in terms of that. I'm kind of a fan for it. I advocate for it as much as I can, to the point where almost now if I miss a meeting, I always say, well, my AI version is in the making. So my AI version will attend if I'm not available. So yeah, I think every HR custodian would want that, also with the amount of associates we have across the globe. So definitely it's how we embed that, but also it's a journey. It's also a mindset shift, depending on what's trending at what point in time.
And I think from a payroll side and an administrative side, just managing different types of contracts is the other spin-off. Because I think you used to tend, it's a permanent, you work so many hours, and now you have to have that whole flexibility in how you pay and when you pay plays into this. I see you nodding your head, Nyatela. In your environment, is there hybrid remote workforce, and how do you manage it within your sector?
Yes, we definitely do have one. And just to start off with the challenges, I think because we are in a target-driven environment, there is just always so much pressure in terms of meeting targets and in terms of meeting the expectations of the business. It does not only, show in retail, but also in people who are in the regionals part of it, because we are the supporters of retail, right? So what I have seen is that we really do lack a bit of, work-life balance. It's not really quite figured out. Not only that, but I have also, seen that there is a sense of disconnection because of the remote working. You're at home, you are so focused into getting these objectives done, into getting this work done, that you literally forget about everything else around you, about your colleagues, and you're just really focused on doing that one thing, whether it's for retail or whether it's for your department, in order to meet target. So what we have done through the aid of, technology and e-commerce is that we have developed an app. It is called Ask Reach. And from this app, what we basically do is that we encourage our employees that on a daily basis, they need to go into that app and capture their mood, whatever it is. So, and in that, on a monthly basis, we are able the feel of what is happening around us and around our employees, and also in terms of what to do about it. And from that, the results that we get from a monthly basis, we are able to, ascertain the type of help or assistance that we can give to our employees. For example, put on webinars, physical webinars, if that is the problem. If we are having a problem with so many employees, being stressed out or being fatigued, do we need to maybe have a little social event where we all come into place, because employees are feeling lonely because of working from home. So this app, with the help of technology, has really been a great aid into, giving us ideas about how our employees are doing, obviously tying back into well-being, which is a quite, crucial aspect of what HR is about, but also crucial for our employees. We need our people to be well in all aspects of life.
I think that sounds super amazing, using tech to gather how people are feeling and being able to address what you pick up from there is super amazing. And I think the stresses of today's life, regardless of your remote or whether you're in office, is actually, I think, taking up a bigger portion of our focus around EVP, DVP, and people. And I think we underestimate that emotional well-being. In Regenesis, we've got what we call the multiple intelligences, and it forms the base of any program that we run. But it's a key focus, not just on IQ and EQ, but it's a focus on a spiritual coefficient. And it doesn't mean it's your religion, but it's your purpose and what you're there for. But it's also the other stuff. There's a coefficient around health. And internally in our organization, we run a canteen that serves healthy food, vegans and vegetarian food, but also a gym for our staff members to participate in. I mentioned the example the other day, the manager of our gym environment and the healthy concept actually gave us all, you could buy through healthy shots to prevent flu, for example. So it's really active and very active in the organization. And also financial well-being and network intelligence is the other pieces. And I think it talks so nicely to what you speak about, Nyatela, and that came through from all of you, is the employee versus the customer and how you manage those two processes. Rishi, I don't want to leave you out. I'm really curious to know how you handle this remote versus in the office environment.
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. We've had to position this to say that we are an outcome-based organization. So we are focused on what the Dynamo has to achieve, irrespective from where they achieve it from. But we do realize that is pretty much only applicable to where that makes sense, where work can be done remotely. So, for example, our stores in our DC environment, that's just not possible. So it's work on the ground every single day. Even within central office, there are certain functions where work can be done remotely, perhaps back office functions, etc. But there are certain functions where work has to be done from the office, and then we encourage Dynamos to get here. And I'm going to say this, but it ultimately comes back to culture. When you ask Dynamos to come back to the office, they mustn't see it as punishment. They must see it as the place that I love to go to, because when I go there, I can be myself, I can achieve my best productivity, and do my best to deliver my purpose, which is to make a significant difference in the life of our customers. So we create an environment that's welcoming for Dynamos to be productive, whether they at the office or work from home. If we predominantly are office based, if I'm honest with you, we found that the downside of work from home is a lack of collaboration. And within retail, real-time collaboration is important between buying and planning, between planning and supply chain and finance. And a lot of quick decisions are made on the spur of the moment in that collaborative environment. So we've got to make sure that we've got a culture that our Dynamos enjoy coming to. And I think we've achieved that based on our results.
Yeah, I think your environment has got a little bit of everything. But as you said, Rishi and Wasifa, it's predominantly in your spheres, it's coming into the office and being present. So I think it's the retail sector is quite fascinating in that it's got these different diverse perspectives. I want to go back to our original question. If you have to look into the future in a couple of years' time, and I'll do the rounds as well, what would be your key skills that you would be looking for? And what would be your wish list for tech? What role should that play for you? And I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer to first react to that. So what is your key skills in the next couple, let's say 3-4 years' time? And what's your wish list around tech? And Suri, I see your hand is up.
I think that's a great question, Karen. I think most of us would have probably mind mapped that one out. And I think in the retail space, fulfillment and back office in terms of racking, stacking, the whole back end process of supply chain, I think would be one of those that I could say in terms of future I would look at differently. And why do I say that is, how do you create efficiencies in making sure that the customer receives that delivery at a much more faster pace? And there have been many industries and different organizations and businesses that have looked at that. But how do you create support in terms of the employee? So do you have a bot experience where probably, at a faster pace, the SKUs are looked at to move out to a different location? And do you have that programmed with the employee controlling that? And you have a faster time to fill in terms of your distribution? So I think those are the core elements that I would think for retail of the future. And also, I mean, we've built in, faster checkouts, etc. But I am still a firm believer in terms of people want experience. Sometimes you want to touch and feel a product as well. So the other element would be is how do you create that via the VR concept? So if I want to go into a store and if I want to know what the garment is going to look like, specifically around, our female customer, you want to know whether that the shoe is going to be according to your shape of your foot, or you want to know whether that bag is going to go with the color coordination of whatever you're putting on. VR will actually help you do that. So I think it's going to be a lot linked to the digital enablement skill, still going to be your social media, digital marketing component that comes up. But with that being integrated, your analytics, your data science, because who's going to be looking at evaluation of utilizing data to make the best decisions to suit your bottom line? So I think that's important. And with that being said, also your customer relations. So customer relations is another thing that's ever going to go through metamorphosis, where it's your virtual customer and it's your in-store customer. So that is going to be another enablement point. But I'm sure that potentially there might be customers that are comfortable with talking to a robot, but I don't think everybody would be. So I still think we'll probably need to find that co-creation element in terms of that. But the core skills, and I think retail of the future, looking at how do you create efficiencies for faster execution of supply chain. That's a big one.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Suri, if you travel overseas in America, for example, a lot of the chemists have got automatic checkouts. So you put your baskets, very awkward if you try it the first time and you don't really know whether you've paid for everything or not. But it seems to work, and it's always a question of how do you create the efficiencies. Although it gives us a question in South Africa in terms of our employment. How do we accommodate people then in other jobs and with other skills rather than the intense labor skills around it? So it is also a moral dilemma in a way, I suppose. Tech is going to take some the jobs away, or it's going to change the jobs and how the jobs look. And how do we change people moving with the process rather than against the process?
Sure.
Rishi, from your side, what is on your wish list and versus tech and skills and talent?
So I agree with Suri when it comes to my wish list for tech. I think specifically in our business and the value environment that we trade in, if my wish list for tech would be to make sure what processes or systems that we can introduce that makes things more efficient and therefore reduces the cost of our doing business, so we can pass that saving ultimately down to our customer. So how can we do what we're doing, at a lower cost, at a faster pace, to make sure that our customer benefits from this, or one way or the other? So one way our customer could benefit with making sure that we reduce our cost of business with better processes is by reducing prices. The other way we could do that is by making sure that when that customer gets to our store, she finds what she wants in her size, in her color, and then she doesn't have to come back another day and pay transport twice to get it. So we ultimately think about how we introduce tech and processes to ultimately benefit the customer that we're serving in the South African environment. So I think whatever tech we introduce, we'll have to do that. We firmly believe that speed trumps size any day of the week. So if we are able to get quicker processes that make us faster, it'll enable us to do things at a lower cost, which will benefit our customer. In terms of key skills that in my view, that we should be looking at for the future, the ones that's top of mind is definitely the ability to be change fit, or adaptability to manage change. I think that's quite important. There's nothing that stays constant in retail. It's a dynamic environment. So we've got to make sure that we attract dynamos that are change fit. Linked to change management and change fit is the ability to be resilient. So resilience is the second skill that we'll definitely look at, because it's fast paced. You trading in Africa, you've got lots of curveballs that are thrown at you all the time. If you're not resilient, you probably won't last the long yard.
Thank you, Rishi. So top of mind it seems like efficiency and cost effectiveness is quite a key driver. And how do you combine it with the human touch we've spoken about at all times?
That only works. That only works. Sorry, if you're going to keep the cost down so that it benefits the customer. Yeah. There's no point reducing cost if it's just going to optimize profits, because that's not our model.
Well, Shifa, from your side on the storefront there, what is your wish list for the future and skills that you see for the future that you would require?
So, from the store side, everything is already in place. The head office is working 24/7 to find new ways to do things better, right? Because that's the whole motto. But what's on my wish list, I would say, using technology rather to make things more efficient on the HR admin side. Everyone can agree, the HR admin takes such a long time. So just looking at ways to cut that time, and where we can do much more, and bring value to the baseline as well. Because some days, of course, it's tiring, it's mind-boggling, and you experience that fatigue. So, ultimately to reduce that admin work, I would say.
I will tick that one on my side too. Thank you, Asifa. Nyatela, from your side, what's on your wish list?
Thanks, Karen. So from the employer side, I would like us to, move and be more efficient and for technology to help with that, and for us, for technology to be reliable, in the sense that, you know, we have less human error in using technology. And I think in that way, if we have technology that really provides for less human error, we are able to focus more on governance than the day-to-day operations of a job. And also from an employer side, on the L&D side, for us to, you know, really communicate lifelong learning for our employees and our staff through technology, you know, equipping them with the tools as well as the material, all the resources that will also, you know, make them being able to do some self-directed learning. Learning does not always have to be, you know, the scheduled one in the classroom or whatever, but them being equipped in a way that they are able to expand their knowledge outside of what we would call classroom training. So I think that would be great from the employer side. And obviously from the employee side, Suri has already mentioned that. From the customer side, that customers feel and have the same experience whether they come into the store or they do it online. I think that will really put a really good balance in terms of sales as well, but also options. You know, I know also from my previous employer, we had this problem where people would just come into the office because no one is answering the phone call, or chatbot is not working, or Q&A. It keeps on giving me the same response over and over again, and that's not what I'm looking for. So I would like to see a really good balance between that tech side in terms of its experience that it gives to our customers, and also the experience that they feel when they have the opportunity to come in physically for queries or for purchases and so forth.
Okay. I think if I listen back to our discussions today, with the feedback and the strategies raised here, what stands out for me is really that perspective that HR is really the driver, and should be the driver of changing the organization from a support point of view, in terms of how do you look forward, evaluate what talent is required, but also maintain that human touch at the same time, and how do you use tech sensibly. I love the fact that you spoke about the tech that actually can measure, how people feel and what is happening with them. And I think if we can build more tech around the warmth, that people still feel the warmth of a human touch, the warmth of a person answering them, whether they're a customer or whether they are an employee, is quite, for me, a key takeaway today. And if I look at the retail sector, is definitely the e-commerce is growing, and that the skills are scarce in that talent. And it's for certain of you, the hybrid versus remote working, and how do we keep people focus on employee well-being in those remote working environments. I think today has been a very rich experience in terms of just thinking through how we can look at retail and what the role that HR must play there. And if I think back to my start of this journey, the question I have is what is going to be our next big evolution? We know AI is part of that, and it's actually been part of us for a while. So the next evolution is, how do we really integrate AI and human perspective, the human touch with one another, is for me something that not only in the retail industry, but in other industries is going to be, especially if we look where the world is today with all the wars going on and the trade wars, never mind the physical wars that people are experiencing, is that well-being, human touch for me is going to be quite key in business environments. So I want to thank my esteemed guests today. It's really been a privilege interacting with you. I'm going to ask you, all of you, just to close off the session with one key word around how you feel about moving forward as HR in retail. And if you want to give a very short explanation around that, please feel free to do so. So from my side, I'm very excited about retail. I think my word is probably excited. I love, and I'm between the face-to-face and the client who wants the online shopping, when I can lie in bed and quickly do my clothes shopping, receive it, and then send it back in a very easy fashion if it doesn't fit and match what I want to do. So for me, it's excitement about retail. I think Africa and South Africans are quite innovative. And for me, it's the excitement around retail. If I can start with you, Nyatela, seeing that you answered the first question for us. What is your keyword closing off the session?
I think I'm very hopeful. And also speaking from the HR side and the conversations that we have had today, just with this panel, that HR still understands, or we're moving to a space where we understand that tech is not here to replace us. Rather, it's just an aiding tool, and that those interpersonal skills are still very much required at a very large scope. You know, let's still have those mentorship programs. Let's still do those coaching. Let's still do those one-on-ones, those performance appraisals. You know, they are still very much necessary. And that when HR really understands the role that tech is playing, then as custodians, we are really in a good position to be able to draw it down to the rest of the organization and communicate this effectively and in a way that will really work for both, you know, the employee, the employer as well, and also tech. So I'm quite hopeful for the future.
Yeah, I love that. I think what you're saying is we are really holding the hands of the business in making sure that the human touch remains in our businesses. Tech,
of course,
evolution, still the human touch and the warmth that we can create there. If I can move to Suri.
I think, Karen, for me, it's really invigorated. I think there's been a lot happening, a lot of, I think, energy and excitement around that. So reinvigorating how ourselves as professionals, as human beings as well, the learning journey never ends. And I think I'm excited about that, excited about the work that I'm part of as well. But I think if I can close out with a closing statement, it would be, it's so important to look at the now, but think for the future. And I think the more HR, kind of embeds that into our practices, we would not be seen as just an admin component, but be seen as a strategic partner. So that's important in terms of our profession. Thanks, Karen.
Totally agree with you, Suri. We need to understand the business to support them fully in their strategic journey, and be an equal partner around the table. And we can play it in this new world of tech. Rishi, your keyword.
I think my key word would be purpose, in the sense that no matter what tech we use and what digitization we progress with, we should never forget our true purpose as HR professionals. And I would think that our true purpose is to make a significant difference in the lives of our dynamos or potential applicants, and society in general. And if we can use tech to help us contribute to that, then that's great. Let's leave the people that we deal with better than we find them, using the technology that we have.
Love that. Thank you very much, Rishi. Wasifa?
So I would say enthusiastic, right? There's a lot happening in the HR space. Of course, there's so much more still to come. Just I'm so excited to see how we transform, because previously, as many people and staff would require, regard HR as, a negative person coming into or to fix something. But now we are moving into the right space of being change agents and leaders, and just to hold the hand of every employee. And we are making that difference. And we are more part of the team now than we were 10 years ago, I would say. Not that I'm so old yet, but it's an exciting time. And I am seeing that. So I'm currently embarking on my MBA journey. And a lot of the things I would hope to use in the business that I'm in currently, or to any future employers. So I'm excited for that too. So looking forward to it. So to end on a positive note, I would say we all have very vast experiences and knowledge, and just to move that into the right direction and enhance it, take it to the next level. That's all we can do.
Fantastic. Thank you to all 5 the guest speakers. I really appreciate your time, the valuable input you've given us today. And let's make our mark in history in the retail section as the HR people that's going to get us there. Thank you very much. And to our participants today, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we trust that you have a fantastic day going forward. Thank you, guest speakers.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.